Do you know the quote, "Nothing in life is certain but..."
Change.
Taxes is one of them. What's the other word?
Death.
Death. Nothing is certain in life but death and taxes. Benjamin Franklin supposedly is the one who said that. And you think about it, and it's true, especially for those of us living in a democracy, you know, where we have elected officials and we have the rights and responsibilities as a public to keep up with our government and what it takes place through them. And so we're taxed. Obviously, death and taxes are not the only things, though, that are certain in life. What else comes to your mind? Can you think of anything else? There are at least two other things that are certain in life. You can count on them.
Pain.
Pain, well, yeah, there's another one. You're right. If you're going to have death, what do you have to have? Life. And that starts with birth. There's a given, and then you got to have birth in order to have death. So you got birth, and you got taxes, and you got pain, and you got death, but you got something else in there. And it may in fact be the most difficult of all for us to face. Now I say that knowing that if you're facing death, or you have had a loved one facing death, I don't mean to take away from the pain that can be involved in that. But on an ongoing day-to-day basis, and if you add up this next thing, all the occurrences of it over a lifetime, it might just eclipse everything else mentioned in terms of a certainty and the impact that it has on us. Change. I was just thinking, did I give enough clues? Bam! Change. It's amazing how certain change is. It doesn't make any difference who you are or where you've come from. It doesn't make any difference the type of life that you've lived, the socioeconomic class that you have lived your life a part of. No matter what has taken place in your life, where you're from, you're going to experience change. And you know that because there's not a one of you in here that hasn't experienced change already. And yet of all those things that I mentioned, which is the one we dread the most? Now you would say, well, death, none of us want to die. True. But again, my statement earlier, if you add up all the change that occurs in life over a typical lifespan, and you think about often what takes place when a change occurs in your life, or even more so, you're presented with a change that's coming. What do you feel like? What do you begin to think when you're anticipating that change? And when you roll up those emotions, it's why I say, and I don't have any science behind this, there are no stats behind it that I have, but it's why I make the assertion that I think change is one of the things we dread the most. It's a common experience. Very few people in life just love change. Just go looking for it. There are some, but not many. Now, why is all that being talked about this morning? The obvious, for those of us who have been a part of Church 180, we recognize that we are in the midst of a significant change. Not that we haven't been in significant change for some time now. Not that you haven't been in a situation of significant change. I mean, for at least the last 2 years, everybody in this country has been influenced by change. We've talked about that in different ways before. But it's true, and it's still going on. Just this morning before the service, conversations with different people about change and how much COVID has changed and continues to impact what used to be and now is different. So we're talking about it this morning and here in particular because today is Church 180's last service in this location. Now it doesn't mean Church 180 is not meeting anymore, it just means the last time in this location. And I push on that a little bit to say what we talk about in other contexts. And if I was to say, well, who is Church 180 or what is Church 180? We talk about it's the last time Church 180's meeting. Well, it's in a building, yes. But the church continues to meet. We'll be meeting in a new location. But it is common to think and associate a particular congregation with a particular place. I want to spend a little time this morning doing a couple of things. I want us to reflect on what change is coming. I want us to reflect on what change has occurred. I want us to take time to both feel and acknowledge and perhaps experience a little bit of the grief, if you haven't already, over leaving all that has taken place here. But then obviously I want us to also look forward to what God is preparing us for and what we ourselves may have to look forward to. So you put all that together and you've got a lot of change, which is why I started talking about that. Now you know me well enough to know that I'm not going to preach a sermon of any type without having Scripture in the middle of it, without it emerging out of the Word and ending with the Word. Because the Word of God is our authority, right? So I want to take us to maybe an unusual place this morning. If you've got your Bible with you or you have access to it on your phone, let me invite you to turn to that very popular book in the Old Testament, the one we often study, Numbers. Where? What? We just don't see it that often. We don't go there very often, but it has, in fact, some of the very familiar stories in it that we know, we just don't read them often or talk about them as being located in the book of Numbers. Let me invite you to turn to chapter 13 this morning, and as you're turning, let me just remind you of what's taking place and what Numbers is capturing. This is a story that is related to the Israelite people becoming a people. We're picking it up this morning in the midst of where God has brought the Hebrew people out of slavery, out of Egypt. He's led them through the wilderness. He has them right on the verge of going into the promised land, crossing over the Jordan. And we're picking it up there this morning because it is a significant time of change for them. Just like us, it's not that they haven't been through change before. They've been dealing with change on top of change. Just coming out of slavery and learning how to be a free people, ask anybody who's been incarcerated and you'll find out it's not just a given. There's a lot of change involved. And they were experiencing that. They were trying to figure out how you do life. And on top of that, how do you do life as a part of this God that has all of a sudden become their God? And they're supposed to be His people. And so you read about it through the book of Exodus where God is working with them and trying to explain to them who He is by teaching them how they're to live, how they're to be His people, and to understand what that relationship looks like. And you remember He's given them the Ten Commandments. He's given them a variety of ordinances and just different ways of living, just different instructions to teach them, again, how they are to live as a people that are identifiable and connected to this one God. And you may remember that they struggled. They struggled in all sorts of ways because sometimes, matter of fact, most of the time, change pushes us in ways that aren't comfortable, aren't familiar to us. And we struggle with them. We struggle with the changes. These people had done the same. And they didn't always handle change well. In fact, the story picks up today with Moses, who had been their leader all along, their human leader, the leader that God had been working through to bring them through this monumental change. And Moses is preparing to send people out to actually explore this place they're going to go into, this promised land, this on the other side of change, if you will. And that's where we pick it up in the beginning of chapter 13. The Lord said to Moses, "Send some men to explore the land of Canaan." That's the place they were going. That's the promised land. "Send some men to explore the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. From each ancestral tribe, each one of the important tribes in their community, send one of its leaders." And so with the Lord's command, Moses sent them out from the desert of Paran, the desert that they had been wandering in, the desert they had been dealing with all sorts of strange things. Food being provided that was different for them. All sorts of struggles of living out in a wilderness, a desert. And so they're right on the front end of this, and they're looking forward to going and exploring this land. What's it going to be like? You know, we feel that way when we have change coming. There's a part of us that doesn't want to go through it, but there's also a part of us that are a little curious about it. There's a part of us that starts asking questions. What's it going to be like? And that's what happens here. If you jump down to verse 17, when Moses sent them to explore Canaan, he said, go up through the Negev and on to the hill country. See what the land is like and whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. And then the series of questions. Think about these questions as you think about any major change you faced. What kind of land do they live in? Is it good or bad? What kind of towns do they live in? Are they walled, unwalled, or fortified? How is the soil? Is it fertile or poor? Are there trees on it or not? In other words, everything about their way of living. They're an agrarian people. They're dependent upon the land, so they want to know, is the soil good? I mean, this is supposed to be the promised land. This is supposed to be a great place we're going into. What's it like? Are we going to be able to grow good fruit? Or is it going to be, man, more of the same that we've had out here in the desert? What are the people like there? You ever ask that when you move to a new place? Wonder what the neighborhood's going to be like. Wonder what our neighbors are going to be like. Wonder what the town's going to be like. Are they going to be friendly and welcoming? Somebody said this morning, you know, and it's true. It's been talked about in the South for a long time. If you move in from another part of the country or another part of the world, and you want to get to know people and become accepted quickly, what do you do in the Deep South? You go to church. Now, maybe less so than it used to be, but it's still a big part of the culture in the South. We meet people at church. And we want to meet people because we want to know our neighbors. We want to be accepted. We want to have friends we can call on. We want to understand the culture. Imagine what they were feeling like as they're going into this new place. What are the people like? Are they going to be friendly? Are they going to be big and tall? Are they going to be scary? Moses is thinking of all these kind of questions as he's sending these men to check it out. Go explore it. Come back and tell us. You remember what happened? Read down a little farther in chapter 13. And you find that when the guys came back with a report, well, it wasn't exactly what was hoped for. In verse 25, at the end of 40 days they returned. So it wasn't a quick little outing. They took their time. They spent time checking it out. They returned and they gave this report to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. Then they gave this account. We went into the land which you sent us, and it does in fact flow with milk and honey. Here's the fruit. But, and here it comes, right? The people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. It goes on to talk about the frightening part of these giant people. They were terrified. This is the report. This is the majority of the report that they're given. Think if you are at home in a typical family, whatever that might look like, and one of yours has ventured out. Maybe you've gone to work, or maybe you've been out shopping, or maybe you've just ridden around your new town to see what it's like, and you've come back, and the people at home are like, hey, what'd you find out? And they've got bad things to say. Man, the people weren't friendly here at all. They weren't welcoming. You're not going to like it there very much. Imagine how you feel. And isn't that, in fact, what we dread about change in the first place? Isn't it amazing how any change that we face in the comings and goings of life always, almost, has the opportunity for good? But what do we tend to suspect? What do we tend to imagine? What do we tend to focus on? Oh no, what'd you find out? And they get this report. But then all of a sudden, one of their number, one of the 12 stood up, Caleb, and he silenced the people. And he said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. In this instance, Caleb and Joshua, that you read about in chapter 14, come back with a different interpretation. They've seen the same thing, but they come back with a different interpretation. In 14, verse 6, Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes at this bad report. They tore their clothes, and they said to the entire assembly, the land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. It's as if to say, don't listen to this negativity. Don't listen to the fear. I'm telling you, it's good. There's a lot of good coming. It is, in fact, a land flowing with milk and honey. And the Lord will give it to us. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. The Lord is with us. If you were to go over into the book of Joshua, you would read about Joshua taking up the mantle after Moses. And Joshua, in fact, repeats this line over and over and over. Don't be afraid. What makes the difference? How is it that you can have a group of people, a handful or a whole lot, and you can send them out to check out something new, and you can get a very different interpretation depending on who you ask? It's relevant to us today because we're getting ready to make a substantial change. We're getting ready to go to a different place, a different part of town. We're going to not only be worshiping ourselves in a new facility, we're going to be worshiping with another church. Now, we'll have our worship service and they'll have their worship service, but we'll be together in the building. And over time, we'll be serving in different ways together, different activities. What's it going to be like? Who are they? Are they friendly? Is this going to require a lot of change on our part? Will we get to be us still? Will we get to have, the Church 180 experience? What's it going to be like? Well, expect it to be just like this. Expect there to be some that come back and give you the report, we've been there. And let me tell you, they're incredibly friendly. They're incredibly gracious. I don't know that I could have scripted it any better. If somebody had asked me, what's it like to be with the people at the New Covenant Church of Rock Hill? What would it be like as they invite you guys to come in and share the facility with them? I don't know that I could have written it out any better. I mean, unbelievably generous and kind and willing to make changes to their facility to suit us, and excited for the opportunity for us to serve together. In fact, the statement's been made repeatedly, isn't this the way the church ought to be? Shouldn't we be working together? Amen. This church and that church? Shouldn't we be looking for opportunities to better our community? To serve all as one people? Here it is. We talk about that. That's the way things ought to be. Now we've got the opportunity, and they're unbelievably welcoming. What does it feel like? What does it feel like since we haven't stepped into it yet? Yeah, but. It's a different part of town. It's a different community. What if things work differently there? Our routine will be different. Not greatly different. We meet here at 10 o'clock on Sunday. We meet there at 9:30 on Sunday. But imagine all the thoughts that are possible when you think about going to a new place that you haven't been before. And in a different environment, with a different setup. What's it going to be like? I get it. I get the concern. I get the wondering. Because I've been through what you've been through for the last 2 years. And frankly, if somebody had asked me 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, if you were to have a pandemic just take over this country, forget about the world for a minute, just to take over this country, if you were to have a pandemic come and it was going to affect everything about the way you guys have done life, the way you do life, what do you think? Want to try it? No. I'd really rather stay with what I've been doing, thank you. I know what I've been doing here. I know what I have. Think of all the change that we have been through. Think of the weariness of dealing with change. Think of the uncertainties that just don't seem to go away. It's not hard to imagine facing another change and wondering, again? But I want to present a different look to you this morning. I want to present a different interpretation to you. This church was restarted January 19th of 2010 by Pastor Paul Peterson, who had a vision. A vision to reach people in the community that were struggling and hurting and having difficulties without the benefit of knowing God. He wanted to reach those folks who haven't been reached, those who haven't found a home in church, those who haven't felt accepted, those who maybe have not found kindness in church before. This was part of his vision. And so he challenged the people that he restarted this church with to consider several things. We want people to come and discover God here. We want them to connect with friends. We want them to become a better person. Now, whether you know Paul or not, whether you were here when that restart occurred or not, let me ask you a real question. Is there good potential in discovering God? Would you like to connect with friends? Want to become a better person? Okay, 2 out of 3 is not bad, right? Has that changed? Has any of what this church has been about changed? Don't we still want to help people discover God? Don't we still want to connect with friends? Don't we still want to become better people? Friends, we have an opportunity where we're going to reach people, a whole different set of people. And as you know, if you know where we're headed, the population is much more dense in that area. There's all kind of people coming and going in the shopping center we're going to be in. That means there's a lot more people that we have the potential for sharing the good news of Jesus with, and how life can be so much better when you have Him with you and His power in you, and you have friends to come around you and support you in your time of need. That hasn't changed. Now we have an opportunity to do it with another group of Christians who also want the same. It's like having all of those voices that pound us in our heads when we're facing change and we don't want to. Tell us, oh no, what might happen? I want to encourage you to hear, if it's just one voice saying, yeah, but, imagine what can happen. Because this is what Jesus calls us to. When he called those first disciples, just like he calls us now, to follow him. Pick up his cross, our cross, and follow him. It doesn't take a stretch of the imagination at all to think, oh no, that's going to be painful. Oh no, that's going to make me change my ways. True. But ask any devout Christian. Ask anyone who knows Jesus personally. Ask anyone who actually lives the life with him. What the difference is in now versus then. It's good, folks. It doesn't eliminate the challenges, but there's absolutely nothing that compares to it. This is what we have the opportunity to share with others. As I wrap up, I want to encourage you to do something. I want to encourage you to think about the change that you've had to go through in this past period of time, these 2 years, maybe more than that. I want you to think about the challenges you faced. I want you to think about the hurt that you've experienced. I want you to think about the unknown that still lies out in front of you. I want you to think about all that was that you cherished that has been changed forever. And ask yourself the question this morning, have I really fully grieved it? Have I really fully dealt with the impact in my heart with all the change that I've been through? Let me tell you why I'm asking you to do that. Not because I just want to end on a down note. If you have unresolved grief, if you have things from these past couple of years that are still hanging out there, influencing you, that you've not been able to turn over, this move is only going to compound it. It's only going to make it more challenging. But it doesn't have to. Because today, now, you have the opportunity to say, if you know the Lord, Lord, I need to give this to you. I need to really let go of this. I need you to come and bring relief. I need you to come and bring healing. I need you to come and open up my imagination again. My willingness to try something new again. My willingness to get outside and experience life again. And I can't do it without you. If you haven't done that, then I want us to take just a few minutes and allow you to do that. Because what we know for sure is that this change, like any other, is going to push us. It's going to require things of us that maybe we aren't prepared to do. Maybe we aren't exactly looking forward to. And we don't need to go into this alone. I want to invite our worship team to come up and play a song just for a minute, because I'm very serious in saying to you, we need to turn over to the Lord anything we're still holding on to that has power, negative power in our lives. They're going to lead us in singing, Lord, I Need You. You're familiar with it. If you're still carrying something, I invite you while they're playing the song to lay it down before the Lord. To turn it over to Him and say, take this for me. I can't do the life I want to do without you.